Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. My reading week this week has been bad. I started the reading week with the intention of giving Nonfiction November one more shot. So, Nonfiction November is a storied BookTube event in which participants read more nonfiction in November. For a number of years, Nonfiction November has been one of the few BookTube events that actually works for me. But over the course of this year, and probably beginning last year, my enjoyment of nonfiction has steadily decreased. I have only actually successfully read 7 works of nonfiction for this entire year. So, knowing that, I did decide to make a large reading plan for Nonfiction November, and most of those were bails in the first few days of November. So I moved on to other things. However, I did want to devote this last week of November to one more work of nonfiction. China, A History by John Keay. This is an introductory history to China, excluding communist China and contemporary China. And I didn't get on with it. My problem started with the introduction and solidified in the first few chapters, particularly the first chapter where Keay fails to sort of navigate between the traditional history of China and what the archaeology is saying about this time period thousands of years ago. And the book never really recovered from that, so I ended up bailing on it. Which is rather frustrating because I have been wanting to read more Chinese history. So then I moved on to reading a bit more of the collected poems of James Merrill, which I have been doing for the last few weeks and not having much success with it. While I do like some of James Merrill's poetry, I've always struggled reading this whole book. And that is definitely true this time as well. And I just petered out and I'm not going to continue anymore. So I'm counting it as a bail as well. And finally, yesterday I reread Voluntary Servitude by Wunderlich. And I didn't actually enjoy it. This has been one of my favorite poetry collections, and I didn't enjoy this reread. So, yeah, I had a bad reading week. Probably what I should have done was read volumes of manga, which I will be doing today and for the next week, maybe 2 weeks. We'll get to that here in a few seconds because, yeah. Anyway, so I didn't enjoy it. And I think that's probably a sign that I'm having so I've talked about this before, but my reading history is weird. And it goes through phases. And some of these phases can last years. Say, for example, when I was younger, I had a mystery phase, and that lasted about 2 or 3 years. And I had a science fiction and fantasy phase that lasted for nearly 20 years. I had been for a while in a history phase which lasted from about about maybe 3 years, 4 years. And I'm very much currently in a manga phase, which ran concurrently with history. But periodically, I get a yearning for what I call classics, modern, and contemporary fiction, poetry, and drama. I don't know why I get the recurrence. I don't understand it because for the most part I don't enjoy those books. I mean, there'll be a few that I managed to actually read, and it ebbs and flows. And I think right now probably on an ebb. Wait. Whatever. Anyway, so yeah, this wasn't pleasant. Which, on the one hand, is probably a good thing because I had been struggling or contemplating over the course of this week exactly whether or not I should order from some university presses. Currently, LSU is having a 40% off sale that runs through December 15th. And I normally try to pick up a few volumes of poetry from LSU Press during this yearly sale. And Yale is having a 30% off sale through the 6th of December. Excuse me. And I was thinking of picking up a few works in translation. Because up until a few days ago, I was definitely feeling an urge for more poetry and more literature in translation, and that desire has pretty thoroughly been tamped down the last few days. So yeah, this reading week was disappointing. So what I will be reading this coming reading week, starting today, is Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp. Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle is Clamp's massive crossover fantasy or series. Clamp is one of the few mangaka groups who have been prominent in manga for decades. They started in the 80s, I believe. And they have a number of successful series. Not just Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, but also the concurrent series Exholic. They are also famous for Cardcaptor Sakura and several others. And so in the early 2000s, Clamp started a Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle, which is a crossover series. It takes variations of various characters from earlier Clamp works in new settings across multiple realities. The series is centered on versions of Sakura and Sioran from Cardcaptor Sakura. In this version, Sioran is the main character, and they're living in the Cloud Kingdom. One day, mysterious attackers attacks a dig, and Sakura is grievously wounded, and her spirit is shattered, and Sioran has to travel across various realities to reassemble Sakura's soul, her memories. And in order to do this, Sioran is sent to Earth to consult with Yuko, the space-time witch, who is a prominent character in Exholic. Sioran and, at this point, as comatose Sakura are joined by two others. A samurai, I think he's a samurai, from a version of Japan that is based on feudal Japan named Koro, and then a wizard from a more traditional fantasy world named Fae. And these both of them have their own reasons for seeking the aid of the space-time witch and her ability to send them across dimensions. And so Sioran and its companions travel across various realities, running into variations of classic Clamp characters. So I really enjoyed this series. I've read it a few years ago. Quite enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to rereading it again. And also, seriously, I need to buy more Clamp. Which I might do, because there's also a 20% off sale at Pals. Although I did already do a Pals order. Anyway. My book hauling this month, or for December, is going to be very, 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 very manga heavy. And it probably will get even more manga heavy. Anyway, so for this week, it's going to be all Tsubasa all the time. And then I might get to my not manga December reading pile once I finish with Tsubasa. I'm not entirely sure. This week has put a huge damper on my desire for that pile, but we shall see. I also have other manga reading plans, not just what I mentioned in my December reading plan, but also there are some new releases and whatever I happen to have picked up during my manga ordering binge. So anyway, BookTube, I'm going to go ahead and sign off for now. So thank you, have a great afternoon and rest of your weekend, and until I see you on Monday, thank you, have a great weekend, and stay safe.